Today's guest was a basketball All-American at Miami before becoming one of the greatest forwards in the history of pro basketball. His outside shot was deadly, his slashing drives were unstoppable, and nobody, and I mean nobody, was a better free throw shooter. On his way to the Hall of Fame, he was a Rookie of the Year, a perennial All-Star, and the MVP of the 1975 NBA Finals when he led the Golden State Warriors to a startling victory over the mighty Washington Bullets. It's my pleasure to welcome a man I've known for a long time, Rick Barry. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing great, Tim. If I was any better, they would outlaw me. And it's good to see you again.
Well, they're not outlawing you, I'll tell you that.
Oh, in some places they
What a remarkable early career you had. And so many things happened to you. Number one, you go to the University of Miami. Why'd you choose Miami?
Well, if you grew up in the Northeast, you realize why Miami was a very appealing place to want to go to school, so that I wouldn't have to wear galoshes and an overcoat and freeze to death and get out of the rat race that the Northeast is all about. And also because the coach down there, Bruce Hale at the time, coached a pro-style type of game. It was man-to-man defense, running up the floor, fast break basketball, just an exciting brand of basketball. And for me, it was very important because the coach I had in high school, I was going to quit basketball my senior year. I really, really did not like my coach. My coach was nuts. and he just did things that I come home in tears sometimes. And it was my brother and my father who convinced me that, Rick, you have to stay because you're going to be a really good basketball player. You're going to get a scholarship and what have you. So I stayed and suffered through it. And I wanted a coach that I really liked, and I really liked Bruce Hale. And Bruce taught me so much. In fact, one of the reasons why I was able to come in and be one of the rare rookies who came in, and I made All-Pro in my first year as a rookie, which is very unusual. And I was able to do it because when I was at school, it was like 4 years in the minor leagues, like you can relate to in baseball.
Sure.
So, because we played that pro style of offense, and he showed me how to play the game and what to be prepared for, because he was a former great pro player himself. So it was invaluable to me to come in and to have that opportunity. And to be honest with you, it was easier than playing in college.
How did you know so much about Bruce Hale's style of basketball and that it was going to help you be a professional basketball player? I mean, here you are, a 17, 18-year-old high school senior.
Well, I had just turned 17. I finished my high school year, my senior year. I hadn't turned 17 yet.
Wow.
But I saw them play. I saw them play in the NIT tournament, and I really liked the style of basketball that they had. And it wasn't like a basketball factory place where I had to worry about getting lost in the shuffle. And it turned out to be the best move that I ever made. And as I said, because of what I learned from him, when I got to the pros, I really found it much easier because in college, the entire defense of the other team was geared to stop me. When I went to the NBA, I was just a rookie. I was just another guy playing. I had one guy guard me. I'm saying, hey, this is unbelievable. I only got one guy guarding me. And it was
in college, you had several guys guarding you.
I would have the whole team.
Double team you.
Well, they double team me. They play box and one. They do all kinds of stuff. And in the pros, that wasn't the case. So it was really a very easy transition for me, whereas other players, I think, have a very difficult time, especially because so many coaches now play zone. I hate zone. I mean, I was so mad at the NBA when they put zone in the NBA. Zone is not basketball to me, okay? It doesn't teach you how to play. You guard an area. It's just horrible for the game of basketball, and I wish they would outlaw zones. They never will, but I wish they would. That's just my opinion.
If they eliminated it in college, would that help?
It'd be just much more fun to watch the game and see players develop the skills that you need to play the game at the proper level. I mean, part of the game is playing defense, being able to guard somebody individually, but collectively as a team. That's what the game is all about. I just can't stand zones. I could talk a whole show about why I don't like zones and why they're a problem.
Well, continue to talk about it, because it's fascinating.
Well, first of all, because the thing is you have no responsibility. Okay, a shot goes up. What responsibility do you have other than your silly little area? Well, if there's nobody in that area, you're not screening somebody off the boards. It means somebody from the other team is going to have a free reign to go to the basket and get offensive rebounds. And you can get killed on the offensive boards playing zone if the other team is aggressive. A really good man-to-man zone played properly is really a sophisticated zone. Because you're dropping off, you're helping out, but you still have always ultimately a responsibility to screen a guy off the boards and can be able to control the defensive boards.
Well, you respected Bruce Hale so much, you married his daughter, right?
Yeah, I did.
He ultimately became your father?
He became my father-in-law. He was a great man, and he's not around anymore. And I loved him as a second father. He was really terrific, and I was just very grateful for what he taught me. And without him, I just don't think I would have ever had the opportunity to have become the player I became in the NBA.
We're going to talk about that player that Rick Barry became in the NBA right after this. We'll be right back. I'm back with Rick Barry, who was a superstar player, basketball player back in the 60s and 70s. And Rick, you talked about that all NBA team back in the middle 60s. I mean, what talent with Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West. Who am I leaving out?
Oscar Robertson.
Oscar Robertson.
Yeah,
and
I
you.
still have a plaque sitting in it from the Sporting News that's laminated, and I walk by it every time. I just kind of shake my head. I mean, here I was, just a 21-year-old kid coming in, and I just shake my head in astonishment when I look at that team. And what I would do on that team, if I were, people always ask me, what team would you like to play on? That's not a bad team, but I would take Elgin off. As much as I love him, he's my hero, and I'd bring Bill Russell on my team. So I would have Chamberlain as the center, Russell as my power forward. I would defy anybody to drive to the basket and get a layup. I mean, you're not getting there.
No.
And then I had West, who was the greatest two-guard in the history of the game until Michael Jordan came along.
Yeah, and you were a big Giants, New York Giants baseball fan growing up.
That's
and
why I
here
wore 24, Willie
You ended up
Mays.
signing with the San Francisco Warriors. Did you get to know any of the guys out there like Mays and McCovey and Cepeda and those guys?
Well, yeah, I got to know all of those guys. It's pretty amazing what a great country you live in. So here I'm a kid growing up, and Willie Mays is my hero. Why? Because my father taught me to catch my fly balls like this.
Wow.
Basket catch.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, this rookie comes to the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. It's Willie Mays.
Yeah.
So I said, that's my guy.
1951.
He's catching like this, right? So obviously I made a good choice. So I'm in parochial school, and my older brother Dennis, he's going to the regular school, the public schools, and they had a day off for teachers' work day, and so their PAL was going to the Giants game. Mm-hmm. So I cut school to go on the trip to go to the Giants game at the early game. So I'm over there. I get and back in the Polo Grounds, they used to go to the clubhouse up the stairs in center field.
I remember it well.
So I jump the wall at the end of the game and sprint out there to go to shake Willie Mays' hand. And I get to shake Willie Mays' hand, go back, we go home.
You're
I get
15,
there.
16 years old.
No, I was younger than that.
Younger?
And so I come home. My brother says, "So how was school today?" I said, "It was great." He said, "Baloney." He said, "You were at the game." I said, "What are you talking about, the game? I wasn't at the game." He said, "Yeah, you were at the game." He said, "I saw you on television." I said, "No way." He said, "Yeah." He said, "They had a shot of this kid that jumped the fence, and they zoomed in on him to shake Willie Mays' hand, and it was you." I said, "Please don't tell Mom and Dad, will you?" So now I go out to San Francisco, and here I get to see Willie Mays, and I get to know Willie Mays personally.
Did you tell Mays that story?
Oh, of course. But here's the deal. So Willie's having his 70th birthday party, right, when he had it at the Bally's. They asked me if I would say, "Rick, would you come down there and be on the dais?" So I'm on the dais with all of the guys that I'm all these Hall of Fame baseball players. And they asked me to speak. They're only going to let 3 guys speak. And they said, "Rick, we'd like you to talk first." So I'm the first guy to go speak in a room with maybe 5,000 people in the big giant ballroom. And I get up there, and the first thing I say is, and I'm looking at the people, I say, "Okay, I know what every one of you is thinking. What the hell is he doing here?" And so I tell him this story and say how great it was that here I am, that I get invited to Willie Mays to speak at Willie Mays' 70th birthday party, who was my boyhood hero. I mean, how cool is that?
Oh, that can't be any cooler. Is it a stretch that if Willie Mays caught the ball like this, that influenced you to shoot free throws?
No,
like
that was my dad. Thank God my dad was so relentless about it. I said, "Dad, I've had the same problem that everybody else has now on the reservation. I can't shoot like that. That's a sissy shot. Everybody's going to make fun of me." My father kept saying, "Son, if you can shoot a higher percentage and you're making your shots, nobody can make fun of you. If you can shoot higher, you need to try this." And he just went on and on. And finally, I did it. And I think it was before either my junior or senior year in high school. And I gave it a legitimate shot. I didn't just go out and do a token, because I figured, okay, if I'm going to try it and see if it works. Mm-hmm. And wow, I really liked what it was. And so I really worked hard that summer with it. And that next year, I shot over 80% for the first time and kept getting better. My biggest regret is that I wasn't intelligent enough when I was younger to make the change that I made late in my career. I made a slight adjustment and refinement to the shot and the technique. And
what'd you do?
Well, when he first taught me, it was like this and that, with the wrist that way. Uh-huh. So that could be, a little bit too much here. It was kind of a severe motion. So I took it and just did this. a simple rolling together so that I didn't have that jerk in it. My last 6 years, when I didn't shoot a lot of free throws, and when you don't shoot as many free throws, it's harder to shoot a higher percentage because if you miss one, you have to go weeks without missing any to get it back up to that 90 percentile. So the last 6 years when I shot over 92% shooting it that way. Had I shot that way when I was shooting 10, 12 a game, I think I would have put some serious numbers up. And I'm very proud of it. And I brag about it because it's the only area of the game of basketball that you can be selfish and still help the team. Because the higher percentage you shoot, the better it is for your team. And I'm really proud of the fact that I had the record for a while at 94.7 for the entire season. I think I only missed 8 or 9 free throws the whole year.
Rick Barry played 15 years in the NBA, and what a career he had, and we'll continue to talk about that right after this. Rick Barry wrote this book about 40 years ago, and in the book, for the most part, paraphrasing it, he said, I didn't set out to be a pioneer. I was sure that other guys would jump, and they did later on, meaning from the NBA to the ABA, and we were talking between segments about change, and change was really what you were all about in your first 5 years in basketball.
Well, basically, my whole philosophy is that never be satisfied. My dad was a perfectionist. I obviously took after my dad, and I've always been a perfectionist, and I always want to play the perfect game, do everything perfectly, knowing full well, being a realist, that you're never going to do it perfectly, but you still try to do it perfectly, which means that you do get better. But you have to have the willingness to change. We can't just always be creatures of habit and do the same thing over and over again, especially if it's not the right thing. And so I have made the change. I changed my putting style in golf when somebody showed me a way to putt that made way more sense than doing it. I changed my style in shooting free throws because my dad convinced me that it was a better way to do it. And I really do think that you have to do that in life in general, not just athletically. I mean, even in life in the way that you conduct yourself as a person. You have to be willing to make changes. If what you're doing isn't the right thing, make the change.
Well, the change you made at a very, very young age was to move from the NBA to the ABA. It's a fascinating story because you were very, very successful with the San Francisco Warriors. In fact, you scored, 38 points or 55 points in Game 3 against the 76ers when they beat you in the finals. And the next year, here you go to the Pat Boone-owned Oakland Oaks. I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, you make the changes, but I didn't make the change. I made the change because I wasn't having fun. Here I was on a team that came within 2 plays. There were 2 plays, both of them involving Wilt Chamberlain, and both of them involving me and Nate Thurman, that had those plays gone our way, we would have been the champs in 6 games instead of the 76ers. That's how close that series was. And I remember those plays like they happened yesterday.
What were the 2 plays?
Well, both of them were pick and roll plays with Nate and I, because that's the play that I helped to really excel at and perfect, which they don't run properly in the NBA today. Not one team ever runs it the right way, but that's a whole nother story. And so we ran a pick and roll play. I hit Nate on the roll. Nate went up to go shoot it. Wilt came over his back, and I swear, Tim, the ball came off. He got fouled. Everybody stopped. But we realized there was no whistle. The officials didn't blow the whistle. And had we won that game, which was back in Philly early in the series, it could have changed the entire dynamic of the series. As you well know, you get a win on the road doing it changes everything.
Sure.
Then we ran another pick and roll play. I came off the screen by Nate. I went up to go and take a shot, and I saw Nate open, and I was going to throw it to him. And Wilt Chamberlain took the biggest step I've ever seen a human being take in my life and cut the passing angle off. So I couldn't make the pass, and so I had to take the shot, and I was off balance. I missed the shot. We wound up losing a close game in game number 6 at home. And so I remember those games like they were just, like they were yesterday. And so I won the scoring title. I was the MVP of the All-Star game. We came within 2 games of winning the championship, had a great team and a great future, but I didn't have fun. Game of basketball was always fun for me.
We're going to take a break. Now, to give you an idea, 36 points a game was his average in 66, 67. I think it was 35.8. But we're going to be back with Rick Barry and talk about his time in the ABA right after this. Rick Barry has said the best thing about the early ABA was the players. Now, take us back at that time. You had to sit out your first year, right, in '68?
Yeah, I was playing for the KYA Radio Wonders, and my good buddy Johnny Holiday, a disc jockey in the area, was known as the Baron of the Bay. And I used to go out there and feed him. He'd take 40 shots a game and play against the faculty and just to keep myself active in the game. But it actually helped me some because I really worked on my ball handling and passing skills, and it was fun raising money, but it was tough sitting out that year.
And they only averaged 2,800 fans. In the next year, they're in Washington, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's when you joined the ABA, actually, in '69. Why did you have to sit out for a year?
Because,
the reserve clause in your contract?
We had a reserve clause, and it changed all of basketball because it was like baseball, which really is a contract in perpetuity. Because if they issue a contract, they just take a percentage off, and you're still obligated to play. And so we challenged that in court, and it actually – the NBA was very upset because the Warriors took the position that it was a reserve clause and that they had the right to do it. So I said, well, then I'm going to sit out. And so I sat out that year that I went to play, and then they had the court still going on. And eventually they said that I had to go back because I had signed a new contract. It got very convoluted. I have guys come up to me and say, hey, Rick, I had your case when I was in law school and whatever. And a judge died, it was delayed and what have you. But the eventual outcome was that it was a reserve clause. And so that opened up the door for players to sit out a year if they wanted to, and then they would be able to move on. And the NBA wasn't happy with that.
And a couple of years later, Curt Flood challenged the reserve clause, and then 5 years later, the Messerschmitt decision in baseball, and that opened everything up. And in the meantime, you went from the ABA back to the NBA and back to the Golden State Warriors, where you finally win it all in 1975.
Yeah, well, because what happened is I signed the contract because the league, they had promised me, and I didn't have it in writing, that if the team left the area, I would be free and no longer obligated.
What kind
to
of
the
money
ABA
are we
team.
talking about?
$75,000. So, yeah, and so it was a situation where actually I think it was $100,000 I wound up making. But I didn't want to necessarily go back to the Warriors at that time, but because I had signed that contract saying that, wait a second, I had a contract that said if you guys were to move the team, I wouldn't have to play. But because I didn't have it in writing, it was then delayed in the courts. And so finally, when they finally got a decision on it, they just said that I was now obligated to go back to the Warriors because I had signed a 5-year contract with them, that when I was legally able to go back to play with them, that I was supposed to do that. And so I had 1 more year left on that. So I finally said to the Warriors, I said, look, if I have to come back and do it, I'm not going to come back for a 1-year contract. If I got to move back there, then sign me to a long-term contract so at least I know I'm there and I'm going to finish playing with the Warriors. And so that's what happened, and I wound up staying there. But then we had a situation where I wound up going to Houston because things just went kind of nuts. I mean, Franklin Muley went off, the owner of the team, on a cruise, and when he was away, it came down to $10,000. Here's the thing. I'm sitting in there, and I remember Scotty Sterling, the general manager at the time, says, Rick, I can't believe that you're going to not sign this contract over $10,000. I said, Scotty, I think you got it backwards. I can't believe that you're going to let me go over $10,000. So it became a matter of principle, and for over $10,000, I left the Warriors and went and finished my career in Houston.
I'm back with the only player to lead the NCAA, the NBA, and the ABA in scoring, Rick Barry.
Take enough shots, you can score, Tim.
Well, you know, we talked about the pick and roll, and in 1975, I guess the pick and roll that you and maybe the guy who Hubie Brown said was the best at the pick and roll, you and Clifford Ray, and you guys are still friends.
Oh, we're like brothers. I mean, I just love Clifford Ray dearly, and he and I go fishing every year. Now we do a
That's
trip
your new passion?
up to Alaska. That's my new passion in life, fly fishing. I absolutely love it. I actually put trips together for people to go with me and businesses, and just love it. I've got 3 or 4 planned for next year already, and you need to do it sometime. I'm going to tell you, if somebody told me 5 years ago that my new passion in life would be fishing, I said, what, are you out of your mind? And that's fun because I'm up there, I got the adrenaline, I'm ready to go, and that's what I miss most about not playing ball anymore. But we have something, Tim, because I'm looking at yours. See, let's get a close-up here.
Oh, yeah.
You see, this is what it's about right here, okay?
It is.
These rings, okay? It's not about the individual stuff. It's about getting these rings, and when you're playing a team sport like baseball and basketball, and Clifford and I, you know, we have that in common. See, if you're a tennis player or a golfer, you win, yeah, your family's cheering for you and all, but who else?
Has there ever been anything that you've approached from an athletic standpoint or a cerebral standpoint that you haven't attacked?
No, I give my best at everything I do. Yeah,
That's what I've gathered from having you here today, and I can't thank you enough for being here.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much. Rick Barry's been my guest I'm Tim McCarver, and we'll see you next time.